¿Qué me está?
Bienvenido a la mesa de trucos de
Ay,
Taylor.
basta.
Soy Taylor.
¡Ay!
Hoy estamos
¿Por qué no te caes? Ay, Dios mío, lo siento para eso. Pero yo sé que ¿cómo se dice? Bit no es cómico y demás, pero pienso que es cómico, entonces lo siento. Pero el juego que estamos hablando ahora es
We interrupt this program for an important news announcement.
Hi, Table here from TTN, and we interrupt this video to present the knowledge that the rebel princess is running away from her suitors on a high-speed chase down the road. We're going to be taking you to our correspondent on the street, Taking, for more. Thanks, Table. Yes, Taking here just miles away from where Rebel Princess is running away from one of her suitors, trying to avoid that man. Hopefully, she gets away. And I believe we have some cameras. Table, do we have some cameras on the scene? I believe so, Taking. Yes, there we are. She's running away and oof.
Basta, basta. Leave me alone. Get away from me. I'm avoiding you. Princess!
Look at that man. Relentless. Oh, and Table, I think she's coming here. Let's see if we can get a word from her. Rebel Princess, Rebel Princess! And here we are on the scene. She has run away from the prince successfully.
Hola.
And we wanted to say, how are you? Perfect. And we did want to say we are covering, I believe, the game that is about your life. Where the hook is, it's essentially Hearts, the game we know and love, but with a ton of powers, a ton of wacky things that can happen. Would you say that's true? Is this about your life?
Sí, esta es mi vida.
Perfect, thanks so much. And before we go to the table and teach how to play Rebel Princess, I do just have one question for you, Snow White, while you're here. Do you want to marry me?
Ay, Dios mío.
No. Come back! Oh, Taking no. Oh, okay. Well, we've lost our field correspondent there. How about instead we take you to the table and teach you how to play Rebel Princess. The deck in Rebel Princess is made up of 4 suits numbered 1 through 12. At 4 players, you're going to remove the 11s and 12s, and at 3 players, you're going to remove the 1s, 11s, and 12s. Of note, there is a frog in the green suit that is worth a lot of bad points. You don't want points in the game. And then the prince suit here, every card is worth -1 point, similar to Hearts. The prince suit is kind of like the Hearts, and the Queen of Spades equivalent is the 8. Here we have a game of Rebel Princess set up for 4 players. So no matter the player count, you're going to deal out the cards equally. So at 4 players, everyone's going to get 10 cards. And then each player is going to be dealt a princess. There's a variety of princesses in the game, and they all do wacky, crazy stuff, as you can see on the bottom here. Like the Little Mermaid says you decide which suit the player who leads has to play to the trick. Oof. Also, in the game, it's just like Hearts. So it's an avoidance game where you don't want certain points on the cards. The theme is you are a rebel princess where you don't want any suitors. So these princes, there's a prince suit, are going to have proposals on the bottom. These are kind of just -1 point or a point and you don't want the most points. They're just bad. And then also there is, just like in Hearts, there's a Queen of Spades, which is worth a ton of bad points. It's on the pet suit. It is the 8 in the pet suit, and I'll show it when it comes out. It has 5 on it. So the 8 is a frog prince, hence the frogs here, and that is what players definitely don't want, but also they don't want these cards as well. In addition to all the players having a princess, which all have powers that you can use once per round or per hand, and the powers kind of break things, like 7 dwarves power here for Snow White is whenever you play a 7 or lower, you can treat it as if it was a 0. It's, again, one-time use, so you just flip it. In addition to those powers, you're also going to shuffle and flip one of these cards, and these cards dictate not only how many cards and what direction you pass them in. As you can see here, this one is 3 clockwise or counterclockwise, and this is 1 clockwise. But also, it has sometimes a special thing that would happen in the round. We'll get into them later, but for now we're actually going to just use this one, because it'll be a little bit easier to teach. This doesn't have any powers at all. It's the very first one. As you can see at the top here, they have letters A, and then there's like a B that's also very simple. I think that's also the next one. Yep. But essentially, these 2 first ones, they just are no powers or no kind of wacky thing per round. It just says pass 3 either clockwise or counterclockwise. So we're going to have that one be the current card for this round, just to simplify the teach. So before a round starts, everyone's going to look at the number and the direction over here, and they're going to pass that many cards. So as you can see, it says 3 clockwise, so everyone's going to choose 3 clockwise. Maybe this player, they're going to pass 3 over to that player. And again, this is all simultaneous. After that happens, then the first trick is going to be led. It is a must-follow game. And let's say the Zelda player, who's Pocahontas, is going to lead for the first trick. And you can't lead the prince suit into the first trick or any trick until they've been played offsuit. So it's kind of like in hearts that you can't play a heart or lead a heart until it's been broken. So same thing here. You can't lead a prince until it's been broken. It is a must-follow game. So coming to the frog player over here, maybe they play the 7 and then Cinderella. They're going to play, oh, here's that frog I was telling you about. Notice 5, oof, whereas the princes only have 1. So again, this is like the queen of spades. Ouch. So they are nervous of taking it, so they're going to play the 2. There is no shoot the moon in this game, so there's no real reason to try to take as many points as you can. And there's also no trump, so the highest of the lead suit is going to win, so the frog is going to win because they've got the 7 there. And so now maybe they are thinking they want to start using their power. So they are Scheherazade. What they do is before the next trick starts, they can take a card at random from any player and then swap it for one of their cards or give that same card back. So they maybe say, hey, Cinderella, give me a card. So Cinderella, you can just take one randomly from Cinderella. You're going to take one. It's the 10. Oof. That's not very good, but what's cool about this is maybe they can short suit themselves and get rid of the prince suit, give it back to Cinderella. So then they are going to lead, and maybe they lead that. So maybe, let's say Cinderella didn't have the fairy suit, they could play, a prince into the trick. So now that breaks princes. Of course, this is still must follow, so players are still going to have to keep following suit if they can. But now that princes are broken, so sadly, the Princess Zelda down here, the Pocahontas character, did get a point, which is bad. They can now lead princes, so maybe they do that. Or they could activate their power, because it says when you win a trick, you can choose another player to start. So maybe instead of playing that, they use their power, so they're going to flip it and say, Cinderella, you lead. And Cinderella, who also has a power, they say before any trick starts, they can reverse the hierarchy of strength and numbers. So they, since they had some high cards in their hand, are going to say, it's actually reversed right now, and they're going to play their 10. So actually 10 is the lowest. So now you can see a little bit of the wildness of the trick play. And you're just going to play that out, and then at the end, you're just going to count up. So let's say, jumping super far ahead, if Princess Zelda took those cards, and maybe Azula down here took these cards, you would just go 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so Azula just got 3 points. And again, you don't want points. So it's the lowest at the end of the game. To start a new round, you would just collect all the cards, reshuffle, redeal. You get a new one of these. And then also players, if they hadn't used their princesses, they do get refreshed. You're going to play a total of 5 rounds, and whoever has the lowest amount of proposals or points at the end of those 5 rounds wins the game. So now let's go into the craziness that's in this deck. This wild and wacky deck. Again, I said A and B were kind of just clockwise and counterclockwise without any powers. But if we look at like C here, it says the Masquerade Ball. So let's go see what that one is. First, I do want to denote before we find out what the power is, it says 1 clockwise. So it's, 2 less than previously, and also it does dictate the direction. Usually it'll be clockwise or counterclockwise. Some though, like this one, will say, 1 clockwise and 1 counterclockwise. So you get to affect both people left and right, which is really slick. But let's go look at what C is in the rules. In the rulebook, they have all of the round cards and then all of what they mean. So looking at the Masquerade Ball here, it says, during this round, everyone except for the player who leads the trick plays a card face down, following the rest of the rules as normal. When everyone's played a card, then you flip to determine the winner. So if that was out for this round, let's say it was C, players would, after they get dealt their cards, they'd pass 1 clockwise, and then let's say it was Scheherazade to lead the first trick. They are going to flip it and say 4 in the pet suit, and then now, so like Cinderella, would have to follow suit. Oh no, they have to follow suit with the only card they have, that only they know what's going to happen with this. And so that it would be face down, and then, it'd come to Snow White, who would play face down, and then, oh, that's right, they're short-suited. But so you can still use your powers. That just affects this round and then obviously you'll get a new one, so this won't happen for the whole game, but that's a little bit of the wackiness that'll happen in this game. And using both powers, like Snow White could say, hey, this is a 0, because maybe they're nervous of winning this trick, and flip that over, and so this and this, they coexist. A lot of wacky powers can all happen at the same time. And just while we're here, before we go to final thoughts, we can see some of the other wackiness. This one is, oh, even the pets are worth a proposal more. So the frog turns to 6 bad points now. Every pet is now bad point. There's some that just turn certain cards into trump, or certain suits into trump. There's some, like this one, upside down, where every time a 6 is played, it inverts the suit hierarchy. That's pretty wild. This one's really interesting, the after party. Ooh, if I could focus. Every player divides their hand into 2 halves. You set one half face down, and then you're going to play the first half, and then the second half. So you can kind of get into half of your hand, short suit yourself in weird ways. There's a lot of wildness. The symbol here with the hourglass that you can see on some of them, like not all of them, right? That one is recommended by the designers to say, hey, play this as the last one if you really want a wacky last one. Some of them are like catch-up mechanisms, like bathroom break here, where the princes score twice as many proposals except for the player or players that are losing, essentially. That will kind of change things a bunch. This one is fairies are actually -1 point, and you can get negative amount of points. Again, these ones kind of change things, so the final round could be really swingy or bombastic or crazy or memorable or ketchup-y or whatever they may be. And also, if we want to cover other princesses, there are some of their wacky powers, like this one is, before the next trick starts, everyone gives you a card, including you. You look at all of them, shuffle them, and give them back to people. Alice is, after winning a trick that doesn't have a frog, you can just reshuffle it and deal it back to everyone. So maybe as Alice you win some princes and you don't want those, you can just reshuffle it and give it back out. There's just a bunch of wackiness that can happen, like the Pea Princesses. After you play, everyone has to play a higher than a 5 if they have one, so making people take stuff. The Ice Princess is, before a trick starts, you make someone start with a random card in their hand. It's pretty wild. So that's how to play Rebel Princess. Entonces, esta es Rebel Princess. What a wild game. This is essentially Hearts cranked to 11, and then cranked to 100, and then 1,000,000, because there's some wild happenings in this game. First off, the production. I think it is a wonderful looking game. The art, effortlessly charming, even from the princes that you don't want. I think they have like such fun expressions, and the giant rose is a cute touch. 2, this little mouse here, which I think is one of my favorite. Look at that. Just hands on the hips. But overall, incredibly charming package. I think the only con I have is the fact that there aren't numbers on all indices, and like at least diagonal, that's brutal, or top and left, for left-handed. And then the fact also that the suits are in the middle and not at the top of the card. What are we doing here? Kind of wacky. Anyway, besides those cons, I think, the production's super nice. I love the fact that they give explanations of all the princesses and explanations of all the extra kind of round cards. It's super clear. We've never had confusion reading one of them. We've gone through all of them and never have been like, what does that mean? Or what, had to feel like we're going to search BGG, right, for any kind of rules explanation. So everything's super, super, super clear and looks absolutely gorgeous, especially when all the different princesses are out on the table and you have round cards and all the cards. Yeah, it's just a very nice production overall. To the gameplay, it is, again, Hearts. So I like that everything from Hearts, besides Shoot the Moon, which we'll get to later, is here. So you have really nice avoidance. You have a Hearts suit, essentially, the princes, where you don't want one. They're all worth 1 apiece. And you can't play them unless they've been broken. And there's a Queen of Spades, essentially, the frogs. And it's in, roughly the same place in the spade suit as it is in Hearts. So it feels like I'm playing a Hearts variant, which is really, really nice. And also you can ease yourself into the game. The fact that there's 2 round cards that are essentially like Hearts, pass 3 left or pass 3 right, kind of lets players, if they don't want to get too wacky too fast, play without, or like just a really simple round card, and just kind of work with the princesses and get your kind of feet wet. I like that the princesses are only once per round, once per hand, because if they weren't, it'd be a lot bit much. And they all seem equally balanced. Like I haven't played with them all just because there are so many, but I've played with them all in the round I was in, if that makes sense. Like I played against them all, at least. And they all are, I think what I love about asymmetrical games is when I'm playing as a princess, I'm like, oh, I love this power. But you see someone else use a power, you're like, oh, I wish I had that power. And they do the same to you. I think that's the sign of a good asymmetrical game. It's kind of like Marco Polo, where you hear about someone else's power and you're like, that's going to break the game. Like, I want that so bad. And then they feel the same way about yours. So I played, like I love Snow White, who's, if you play a 7 or lower, you can just turn it to a 0. So useful, especially in an avoidance game. And I love that's thematic too, 7 dwarves. And it feels like 7 is the right number. Obviously, it's a little bit funny that it's less strong in like a 5 or 6 player game, but I'll get to the whole 5 or 6 player game later. And I think all of them, again, you might not use it in a hand. I've definitely seen that happen where you just either don't need to, or like one of them where if you win a trick and you want to like redistribute them, I think that's Alice in Wonderland. I've played with someone who didn't really use it most rounds because they were just good at the game and they didn't have to take any tricks. But it was nice because I think one time they did take a couple points, picked it up, shoveled it, re-dealt, and it was great. It felt like a power that I was like, wow, that is so useful. So I love all the princesses. I think they had a wonderful variety. None of them felt confusing or bad or anything. Like I think even if this game was just the rebel princess part of the game, so it was hearts with the princesses, I think it was absolutely stellar. But on top of those, you have these round cards, which I think do 2 amazing things. One is, well, the main thing they do is they make every round feel different and unique and goofy and wild. But maybe this is just a small thing that I personally absolutely love. The fact that they are different number of passing, so like 1 or 2 or 1 or 3 or whatever, or even the ones that are, which I really, really like, it's 1, you pass 1 but to the left and to the right. I think that's a really cool. I love the fact that they included 2 that are like base, and they included ones that are like this suits Trump, like really simple stuff. So you can kind of tailor this deck, to being super simple if you want a more simple game, but also to like insane things, like things in this deck that make it to where the whole game is wildly, wildly, wildly different. I think the fact that they also paid attention to which ones are incredibly weird, like the hourglass ones, and recommending having those be like the final round, makes it to where the first 4 rounds, can feel a certain way, and then the last round feels super, super, super wild and chaotic. I think there's a lot of attention to detail in this game. I think there's a lot of consideration. I think even when you're looking at the deck makeup and you see that at 3 you take out the 1 rather than the 10, I think they know that matters in terms of where the 8 is placed, the frog, in the hierarchy. They didn't want it to be 1 through 9. They wanted it to be 2 through 10. So I think there's a lot of consideration. I think the fact that everything feels balanced, everything feels fun, most importantly, that I don't think it's as chaotic of a game as I've heard. I think this is a really well-considered game. Like there was one moment where one player, they could flip the hierarchy, and then also in the round, there was a situation where the last trick kind of led to where it was the frog, and another player had the I'm just talking about a session, but essentially everyone used their power all at once is what I'm trying to get at. But everyone anticipated that, and there was really cool things that happened when they banked off that information. So I guess what I'm saying is, yes, the game's chaotic, but everyone is knowing what can happen. Everyone knows like what the chaos leads to, if that makes sense. It's like it's not random. It's just a lot. Like it's an intricate system that can happen. And yes, there's powers that are random, but I guess like if I knew someone could randomly steal from my hand in a round, like someone was Scheherazade, I think is the princess that does that, I anticipated that, if that makes sense. Like if I knew Cinderella was in the trick and I knew my low card randomly in a trick could win, I anticipated that and I played off that. So I hesitate, and I'm trying to be careful with my words here, to call this chaotic, because I don't think it is. I think it's just busy and wild and very fun. All that said, I think the only cons of the game are certain cards in here might rub people the wrong way. There's ones that are like definitely catch-up mechanisms. There's ones that I personally find as broken. Like, for example, there's one that's the wedding gift, I believe. It's this one, where essentially you, before every trick, will put any card you want face down, and everyone does that into a pile, like a gift, and then whoever wins that trick takes the gift. And as you could imagine, all it does is it makes it so someone puts the frog in there, and then a bunch of people put princes in there, so it's just a horrible gift. And effectively, it just makes it so the first trick is just brutal, and then you have to play out the rest of the tricks. So that was really bad. Like every time that one's come up, it's just been kind of boring, which sucks too, because it's also the hourglass one. So we've tried to have it at the last round, and then that's always been kind of an anticlimactic last round. So I think some of them are in there aren't my favorite, and I think what's great is there's so many you can just remove those and still have a really fun, really wacky game. But some in there I think are absolutely stupendous. Like one of my favorite things about these types of games, where there's like so much variety and so much like crazy setups you could do, is it almost feels like I would love to see a game just focus on that, like this one, which I really, really love, where, as you can see with the numbers there, it's odds and evens, to where when you follow suit, you not only have to follow suit, but you also have to follow whether it's odd or even. So for example, if I play a 3 in the green suit, and you have a 5 and a 6 in the green suit, you have to play that 5, because I played an odd, you have an odd. And then I think we interpreted it to where if you were off suit, you had to play an odd. So if I don't have a green in that case, I can't play any evens up my hand if I have an odd. Really fun, really interesting, and it's a fun way to like play off of that too. There's a really cool moment that I had when someone was playing off of this knowledge in a really cool way. So yeah, I think it's almost like a system that allows players, that puts players in very, very wacky situations, but ones that they can play off of and make really fun moves. Everything feels different. I really enjoy this game. I think the only thing, 5 and 6 players is just, that is where I would start to say it's chaotic. I was able to play intelligible games of them at that count, but I do think that is where I think things get a little off the rails. So at 4, 3, 5 straddles the line a little bit. I think Rebel Princess is an absolute hoot. You have to be okay with craziness. You have to be okay with learning rules mid-game. You have to be okay with things changing a lot. You have to be okay with people messing with your hand. These are all things that I have noticed. Some trick takers do not like. If you're looking at your hands and you're trying to evaluate what's going to happen in this hand, like other trick takers, that's going to be tough. If you don't like people possibly stealing from you, possibly making your cards be strong when they were weak, you got to be handling of that. But if you like that type of stuff, or if you can put up with that type of stuff, I think this is a fun game. Hey, Interrupting Taylor here. You might be asking, wow, he praised this game a lot. Why didn't it get the seal? It is so close. I do want to say it came a little bit shy. I wish there was a shoot the moon mechanic. Ugh, I just miss it. I love Hearts so much, and I miss it. And also, I think I have played with some players who found it a little bit wacky. So I think, even though I kind of like the goofiness, I want to hedge my bets and not recommend or give the seal to a game that has the potential to really, really land poorly. So I do really like it. I think it has those small little shortcomings, a little wacky, a little goofy, a little too wacky, a little too goofy, and no shoot the moon, which, I was wishing it was having. I think it would add a nice little fun little layer. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Otherwise, it is a wonderful game. And if you don't mind the fact that it doesn't have Shoot the Moon, or if you don't mind the fact it's a little bit wacky and goofy, this is stellar. So thanks so much for watching. That was a little glimpse of Mayvoidance, is I believe what I'm calling it. I will catch you back on Chavoices next week. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Bye.